Hey, what's going on, people? This is 316. Welcome to another edition of the Purge. This is Word of Truth, and this is your series, the Purge that I'm doing. I told you, we gonna do this all year. We're gonna do this all year, God willing. Been an honor to do these. These been to me helpful. In a way, it's been, let's say, how can you say this? It's been therapy, if I may say that. I love doing these purges. Matter of fact, let me get this. Okay, so I can get a little bit closer to the mic. So yeah, this has been a pretty interesting week. I really didn't plan none of this, and it came in full completion and manifestation. And I have quite a show for y'all today. Today, we're going to be talking about Juneteenth, and it all ties into what's going on in the world today and what's going on currently. Juneteenth, my thoughts. I had shared my thoughts before, but what I will say before I get into Juneteenth is I understand the history of what you call racism, which I believe that's a word made up. Racism is not even in the Bible. It's called hatred. If you hate any flesh, it doesn't matter for what reason. It's hatred. You can call it call it whatever you want to call it. You can call it racism. You can call it a spirit. You can call it whatever. Well, it is a spirit. To be honest, hatred is a spirit. Anger is a spirit, and God didn't give us none of those spirits. Those spirits came from elsewhere. They've been manifest. They've been conjured up and used for the evils, for the upper echelons people's advantage, been used to their advantage. So I hate to break it to you, but there is no such thing as racism. There is hatred. You can't find racism in the scriptures, but you can find hatred. And that's a factual thing right there. And, you can take it or leave it. But nevertheless, let me see. I want to look at something real quick. But nevertheless, Juneteenth is nothing but a joke. I'm going to say it. It's a joke because no matter how much these people try to make it comfortable for different cultures, not just black culture, they try to make everything comfortable. Be careful, people, when people are trying to make things comfortable for you. That's like when a person been doing bad all day long. Let's just say a kid. Mom, dad wasn't home. They've been cutting up all day long. But as soon as they know that authority is coming home, as soon as they know that if they don't stop doing what they doing, they're getting in trouble. What they do is they clean up behind themselves. And then when they come in, the parents come in, everything looks like it is as it was when they left. How do I know? I've done that before. Many of us done that. We cut up, we cover our tracks, and we act like nothing happened, but knowing doggone well we was doing bad. And that's what they doing. They covering up their tracks. Even though they haven't done a real good job of it, even though they already been exposed by the Holy Scriptures, these people know what they doing. And Juneteenth is nothing but a joke. I don't care what happened. We understand what happened at Selma. That was hate. We get it. In fact, those people back in those days get it, got it. But they didn't act like they act today. A lot of these organizations now that's for the black people, so-called. When I say so-called, I mean, you know, if you don't read the scriptures, you won't understand what this race is about. What racism, what race is really. The scriptures explain it. But anyway, they have done bad to us for years. We understand that. Scriptures already pointed them out. And now our people are becoming awake. And just because you're conscious, black man or black woman or a person of any culture, doesn't mean you're right. You got to have a foundation of the scriptures, because a lot of us and the people that we're being led by has taken the scriptures and reverted it into their own history and doesn't tell the whole truth. So when you go out here and you have people like President Biden, which is a Caucasian man, a Catholic man, and if you understand the traditions of Catholic and Romanism and all that, you understand that they're not fully with the body of Christ. They have their own agenda. They empower. They call the shots. And there's nothing you can do about it. So until we break the yoke around our necks, even white people have a yoke around their neck. Asian people have a yoke around their neck. Latino, Mexican, Spanish, it doesn't matter what type of culture and indigenous culture that you're in, you have a yoke around your neck because you believe a doctrine that is false. And it's been given to us by little increment sections. And they do it so much that they put it in front of your face. They are so good at it that they put it in front of your face and you still can't discern what's going on. Yes, we still have a yoke around our neck. As long as you believe and trust in the system that they have provided, you still have a yoke around your neck. Unless you understand the scriptures, yes, you still have a yoke around your neck. As long as you are putting up your fist for Black Lives Matter and kneeling, which is a ritual, you still have a yoke around your neck. I don't care how much you say Jesus Christ. You cannot. The Lord said you cannot serve two masters. It's impossible to serve two masters. So you can't have your fists up in the air with one hand and the Bible in your hand in the other, because the fist represents the evil cult and the evil practices of these cult leaders of BLM. They're homosexuals, they're lesbians, they're socialists. They don't believe in the holy scriptures. Their foundation itself is of witchcraft. Witchcraft. This was brought in by witchcraft, my people. But yet, we are Christians and we totally say, you know what? I'm with it. But you know what? What I will say is this. I understand. But there comes a time when you have to come up off of learning from your master, which have been leading you wrong for a long time. Come back to baby. Come back to baby. Let's roll the first clip.
We'll get to this breaking news we've been following for you all throughout the morning. That huge search for two people who disappeared following a deadly tubing accident in Rockingham County.
Just a tragic story. Michelle Wolf is live in Eden, where rescue teams are launching. Michelle, any updates in the search as of now?
Well, they started about half an hour ago. You can see rescue crews are gathered behind me below at the Draper boat ramp. We've seen Eden Rescue Squad and Reedsville Rescue Squad launch their boats. We also know that a chopper from Highway Patrol will be coming from Salisbury in about an hour or so that the search can continue by air. A group of 9 family members went tubing on the Dan River around 7:30 Wednesday night just before dark. The group was split between 3 rafts. At some point, they went over the Duke Energy Dam. Rockingham County Emergency Services Director Rodney Cates tells us he believes the people on the rafts didn't have a way to call for help. So it took until yesterday afternoon when Duke Energy employees spotted 4 of the 9 people at the bottom of the dam. For them to be rescued, they include a 14-year-old boy, his uncle, and 2 cousins. So we spoke with the mother of the 14-year-old, and she tells us he's pretty tired. He's physically okay, but mentally not okay. He was in the river for 24 hours. He's been released from the hospital. Later, the bodies of 3 others were pulled from the water. That leaves 2 people out on the river. And crews told us yesterday they are hopeful that they will find them alive. Live in Rockingham County, Michelle Wolf, back to you.
Body of 4th victim, a 7-year-old boy, is found in North Carolina tubing accident. Isaiah Crawford spotted in Dan River following 911 call. The body of a 4th tuber has been found in a North Carolina river following a deadly accident in which a family on a recreational float went over a dam, local officials said Sunday.
So condolences to all the people that were involved in this incident. Unfortunately, you can't enjoy yourself. You have to always to be alert and this and that. And I never went tubing. I think I went tubing. Oh, well, I never went tubing. The closest thing I went to tubing is probably like at Six Flags or something like that, but never like this. And, you know, doing adventurous stuff like this without understanding sometimes can cause problems. Sometimes this stuff happens, you know. It doesn't have to do with you understanding what tubing is, whatever. Sometimes these things happen. And sometimes you gotta take proper precautions before you make moves. It's just like when people want to jump out of airplanes. I think that's kind of over the top. Even riding the airplane just to go from city to city, no pun intended, is over the top. But sometimes it is, but it's useful. It gets you there quicker, right? Opposed to when people used to just go get on their horses or just driving their cars and just ride, you know. Preferably, I would rather fly. Even though, you know, once you crash, it's a wrap. You know, so there's always pros and cons to everything. You just have to be mindful and not be so anxious to do dangerous things in life, right? Especially when you don't have experience in those things. It's very important to understand to know what you're getting into before you get into it, and always think twice about stuff like that. Even mountain climbing and stuff like that, it's dangerous. Wildlife, you know, going venturing in wildlife is even dangerous. I know it's dangerous, and I still do it, you know. But it is what it is. You know, you can't live in fear. God said the animals, you should have dominion over the animals, and they should be afraid of you and, you know, respect you and stuff like that. And in most cases it happens, in some cases it don't. But condolences to all the people that was lost in this tragical accident. Let's go to the next clip.
In the meantime, back here at home, major shakeup rocking the police department in Portland. We talked about this a few moments ago. An indictment against an officer apparently prompting all 50 members of the riot squad to resign from that team. Here to talk about it, former Detroit Police Chief James Craig. How you doing, Chief? Good morning to you. Well, what are they going to do in Portland, do you think?
You know, I got to tell you, Bill, not a surprise. In fact, I'm surprised it's taken this long. You know, failed leadership, and I don't even like to associate someone who sits in the seat of a mayor with leadership, but a seat of influence. And what we saw in Portland is an example of when you don't support the men and women who do that difficult job each and every day. Those police officers demoralized, they have no support, and the people that suffer are the people who live in the city, the people who have businesses in the city, and they just can't seem to get it right. So for me, Not a surprise. A surprise it took this long.
Yeah, you know, Dana and I talk a lot about the qualified immunity, and a lot of these cities are getting rid of it. I mean, New York's one of them. That's another like shot to the gut of these police officers, right? When they know that they don't have backup, literally in the legal sense.
There is no backup. And when you look at the attrition rate in New York right now, the fact that their council voted to strip qualified immunity away from those men and women who serve, that's a veiled effort to dismantle policing as we know it. So now they're moving away from talking about defunding, but they're still peddling this issue called in qualified immunity. I got to tell you something. Let's talk about Chicago and Mayor Lightfoot. I like what Leo Terrell said the other day. This is not a gun problem. It's a criminal problem. And she needs to be held responsible, and she needs to be held accountable for her failures. It's sad what I see going on in Chicago.
So what's happening in Chicago? Lori Lightfoot's asking the feds to come in and help with the illegal guns. You mentioned Leo Terrell. He said this yesterday about that issue in Chicago. Okay, so in a moment, we'll get it in a moment. He was debating Geraldo in our program. What he was arguing is that during the Trump administration, they said, we'll give you federal help. Here's Terrell. Watch.
We don't have too many guns. We got too many criminals. And Lori Lightfoot is playing political gamesmanship. Now she's begging for the federal government to help. The federal government wanted to help her last year, and she said no. She is just an opportunist. Those are typical Democratic talking points.
Well, Chief, that's your point, right?
He said it best. He's absolutely right. This is political gamesmanship. The progressives will sit up and talk about, it's a gun problem, or let's have gun buyback so we can show that we're getting guns off the street. It does not work because the rules do not apply to criminals. Criminals are the ones that get a hold of guns. It's not gun buybacks. It's not a gun problem. It's a failed criminal justice system. I'm not talking about the men and women of the Chicago Police Department, because I've had a chance to talk to many of them, and they feel demoralized. They're leaving. They don't feel the support.
The other thing the mayor in Chicago said, she said systemic racism is to blame. I don't know what your view on that is, but her quote was 80% of health outcomes are due to social factors, including housing, safety, education, economic opportunity. Safety was the second thing she mentioned. What do you think of that?
That's ridiculous. Her crisis is crime. And what she's also not saying, like so many who sit in those type of seats in many of these cities, is who talks for the victims? What about the residents who live in vulnerable communities, who are also many persons of color? Who speaks for them? Not Lori Lightfoot. The crisis is violent crime in Chicago. And you're talking about 13,000, I believe that's the number, 13,000 men and women who serve in that great city. I visited Chicago recently, Bill, had a chance to talk to some of the police officers. I was shocked at what I saw on Miracle Mile, shocked. And I love the city of Chicago.
As do I. Thank you, Chief. We'll talk again soon. James Craig, thank you for being on today.
Thank you.
And this is why Juneteenth is a joke. It's a joke. I mean, these people want to defund the police, but at the same time, we have blacks killing blacks every day. No outcry, no outrage. As long as we still killing each other, we still have a yoke around our necks. As long as we trying to steal from each other and take away from each other, we still have a yoke around our necks. As long as we still voting, which voting was used as a political tool to divide the masses of the black people, really, and it worked, because you have some blacks on Republicans, you have some blacks in Democrats, and they both are wrong. I can't understand how can you overlook the Democrats when they had the KKK. I can't understand how can you overlook that part right there. And of course, the Republicans had their just due, did their duties and sinful things. But how can you esteem one party over the next when they both are in the wrong? That's just something to me that I can't understand. What is the root? What is the root? And we got people, just because somebody signed a piece of paper to make Juneteenth a national holiday, we all smiles. But we have kids killing kids. I'm talking about black kids killing black kids. Bullying. We have bullies. Can't even get that word out. Let me drink some. There's bullying going on. Kids, Juneteenth is a joke. There's no way around hatred. Is there? Tell me it's a way around hatred. The only way around hatred is the renewing of the mind, renewing of the soul. In 1 John 4:20 it says, if a man say I love God and hateth his brother, he is a liar. For he that loveth not his brother whom he hath seen, how can he love God whom he hath not seen? If a man say I love God and hate his black brother, no, it says, hateth his white brother. No. It says hateth his Asian brother. No. It says hateth his Hispanic brother. No. His Indian brother. No. It says if a man say I love God and hateth his brother, he is a liar. For he that loved not his brother whom he have seen, how can he love God whom he have not seen? Hatred stir up strife, but love covereth all sins. Proverbs chapter 10 verse 12. Whosoever hateth his brother is a murderer, and ye know that no murderer hath eternal life abiding in him. 1 John chapter 3 verse 15. Where's racism? Thou shalt not hate thy brother in thy heart. Thou shalt in any wise rebuke thy neighbor and not suffer sin upon him. So when you say that was in Leviticus, thou shalt not hate thy brother in thy own heart. Don't hate your brother. Don't hate your brother. Don't hate anyone. Period. Thou shalt not anywise rebuke thy brother. You cannot rebuke flesh and not suffer sin upon him. So don't blame the flesh for this sin. You're speaking to the spirit of sin. That's what that means. So it doesn't matter what your skin color is. There it is. Brought it right back into to full circle. If the world hates you, ye know that it hated me before it hated you. The world is full of hate. There's no love in the world at all. There is no love. There is no such thing as love in the world. There is no such thing as love in the world. The Lord said he came into the world and it could not comprehend the light. There is no understanding and knowledge in the world. So wherever you're getting racism from, that came from the world. Hallelujah. Drop the mic. I can drop the mic right now and turn this off. Let's roll the next one. Juneteenth is a joke and you still have a yoke around your neck.
Senator, From the get-go, you questioned whether or not COVID could have originated at that lab. You were roundly mocked. A lot of Republicans joined you. They were mocked. You know, the social media companies shut it down. Yesterday, Jake Sullivan, who's the president's national security advisor, was talking over on one of the other channels about how we will get to the origins. And it's not very optimistic about how the government is going to leverage the assets of the federal government to get China to give us the truth. Here's Jake Sullivan. Listen to this.
What Joe Biden did in Europe this week was rally the democratic world to speak with a common voice on this issue. For the first time since COVID broke out, President Trump wasn't able to do it. President Biden was. And it is that diplomatic spade work, rallying the nations of the world, imposing political and diplomatic pressure on China, that is a core part of the effort we are undertaking to ultimately face China with a stark choice. Either they will allow, in a responsible way, investigators in to do the real work of figuring out where this came from, or they will face isolation in the international community.
How terrified is China right now, Senator? Because if they don't cough up the information, we will isolate them internationally.
Yeah, I don't think Xi Jinping is quaking in his boots that Joe Biden's not going to invite him to coffee at the next G20. Look, it's not surprising that this crew doesn't traffic in threats with their enemies. The only people they seem to threaten are allies like Israel. But nor should it require China's cooperation. First off, China is not going to cooperate. They're not going to open those labs and let American scientists and researchers go in. And second, there's more than enough evidence to hold China accountable now. As you said, from the very beginning, I noted that this virus very well could have originated in those labs. I mean, it didn't come from a remote mountain village next to a cave full of bats. It came from a city larger than New York, just a few blocks down the street from the lab where they research these viruses, a lab that's run by a woman literally nicknamed the Bat Lady. It's well past time the Biden administration began imposing consequences on China, like pulling their most favored nation trading status, or pulling all the visas that Chinese Communist Party officials and their kids get to come to this country every year. We can do a lot to hold China accountable, and we're not doing nearly enough.
Stop giving money for gain-of-function research to countries like that. How vindicated did you feel when the left started talking about the lab leak theory and you could finally write about it on social media without being blocked?
Well, Ainsley, I got to say, I wish I'd been wrong from the very beginning about this virus and all of its effects around the world and here at home. I wish I'd looked back and been called an alarmist, but I wasn't, unfortunately. And I think it's a reminder that we shouldn't allow companies like Facebook and Twitter to control the terms of our discourse. We might have gotten to the truth a lot faster if we had had an open, honest discussion and not censorship from big tech companies.
So I want you to hear what Dr. Fauci said yesterday, the second time he's really responding to criticism after walking on water for the first 13 months of this virus. Not here, but other places. Listen.
It is essential as a scientist that you evolve your opinion and your recommendations based on the data as it evolves. And that's the reason why I say people who then criticize me about that are actually criticizing science.
Here we go again. Why don't you take this from here?
Yeah, Tony Fauci is not acting as a scientist or a doctor anymore. He's acting as a Democratic Party activist in a white lab coat. Why doesn't he tell us what science, what data backs up the Biden administration's stupid mask mandate for airports and airplanes? I mean, are you more likely to get the coronavirus in an airport than you are a shopping mall or an airplane? With its massive filtration systems, is it really necessary to kick off a family with an autistic child who can't wear a mask peacefully for an entire airplane? Does Dr. Fauci have evidence to support that from the data and the science? I mean, we shouldn't allow Tony Fauci and Facebook to determine what we can and cannot say about this virus, because from the beginning, he's been giving politicized advice. He's admitted that he's changed his advice based on what would be herd immunity levels, not based on what he thinks he sees in the data, but what he thinks the American people are ready to hear.
Senator,
why doesn't he just tell us what the facts are?
He does have power, and he has international standing. Can you imagine if he used that power to say, I don't know what this virus is. China is not giving me answers. I can't prepare the CDC or recommend them for a test that's going to hit our shores. I don't know about the mutation because they're not being transparent. With all that pressure, that would have helped solve the problem. That would have humanized him more. I'm an elite virologist. I have this international standing, and I am not getting answers. That would have helped. Instead, he subtly took his points, his talking points from the left, and took most of his stature to go at Trump.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. In fact, he seemed from the very beginning to be more concerned about protecting his own agency's reputation and his reputation and his friends in the science world around the world, to include the scientists in this very lab in Wuhan, which his agency indirectly funded with hundreds of thousands of taxpayer dollars. So he was more concerned with CYA than he was about being open and honest about what China was up to and what we didn't know because of China's deceitfulness.
Well, from the beginning, when we first heard about this pandemic, this coronavirus, it was uncertainty, it was certainty. When I first heard about this coronavirus, it came from China. Okay, I don't know why China is a testing ground for a lot of diseases. Believe it or not, believe it or not, they won't tell you that. But these foreign countries and China, perfect tests for diseases and to observe the quality of control that they need to push the agenda that they're pushing. Now, what media does is point the finger at one person. They do this every time. They do it with presidents. They do it with just individuals. Like one person can destroy the world. That is not even scriptural. So what they try to do is put it on one person. So Dr. Fauci first was against it, now he's for it, now he's unsure, which tells you that it was uncertainty from the beginning. This is the disease came from China. It was made in a laboratory. All right. They used China as an experiment. They pushed it out by increment ways to other countries. Then it came here. Boom, full-blown world pandemic. So a collective group of people in power decided to let this go on. They could have stopped it. They have machines and things to stop this. They have medicines and stuff. Even if it was real, I believe that some of the deaths of coronavirus was real and some was fabricated. Now they have Dr. Fauci going back and forth. He's the one that said we need the vaccines. He's the one that said we need 3 masks. Now they doubling down and blaming him for saying that he falsely said what he said. Well, if that's the case, then the people that delivered this information to the public as truth is in fault also. Because you went upon a lie that wasn't confirmed as truth. We don't know where this coronavirus came from initially. Like I said, it started in China. It's supposed to be a form of a flu, where magically the flu is not even an issue right now. Common colds is not even an issue right now. Cancer, AIDS, HIV is not even a concern right now. What we've been fed was coronavirus, pandemic, and racism. That's what we've been fed, and that's what we've been intaking. Vomit. We had taken their vomit that they spewed, and we ate it all up as truth, not knowing the root. What came out of this pandemic was nothing good. It kept people home. It kept people away from each other. It lost people jobs. People died. There is blood on the government hands. And if you want to blame anybody, you can blame everybody, even Joe Biden. He's number one on my list because he's the mask man. I would never believe somebody that trips up the steps 3 times in a row. Ever. I can't trust you. You unstable. You are a stumbling block. There it is. He's a stumbling block. Him and his party. Kamala Harris, all of them. All the rappers that supported Joe Biden, y'all going to hell along with them if you don't repent of these sins that you're committing. You're rubbing shoulders with the wrong people. And some of them know the truth and still do it because they need political gain. They need fans. They need views. They need to be relevant. So their interest is not really in you. Their interest is in themselves. The ones that pushes the matter that you need a mask, that pushes the matter that there's racism, that pushes the matter that Donald Trump needed to get out of office. Everything is coming together now. And if you don't see it, this is why you're lost. That's why you still have a yoke around your neck, because you refuse to receive the truth. You refuse to observe the matter. Let's go to the next clip. I can go on. Well, the guy that created the antivirus McAfee has committed suicide. Now, how true that is, I don't know. But it kind of, even if he did do it by suicide, when a person commits suicide, especially when it came to the Bible, when Judas committed suicide, he knew he'd done wrong. And when a person commits suicide, it speaks of their confirmation of complexity of their thoughts and what they believe. What they once believed was true is now not true. Now you can't live with yourself because you have destroyed your whole integrity. You have destroyed your whole existence by one lie. And if he did commit suicide, it's beyond his own guiltiness. So when you commit suicide, you're guilty. You gotta be guilty. Either you're guilty or you can't live with yourself. Or you can't live with that issue. That's when a person commits suicide. Rest in peace to McAfee for making the antivirus. But unfortunately, he had other problems. And I believe that those issues of life, the word says, the man speaks the issues out of his heart, the issues of life. And he expressed himself by committing suicide because he couldn't live with himself in the way he was living or the way he lived, and he never repented. So he just killed himself. I believe if Judas would have repented, I believe he would have been forgiven, but he was so distraught He was so overtaken by the matter of his deception. His deception killed him. There it is. So rest in peace, McAfee. Condolences to his family. It's never good when a person dies. Again, you don't know where they're going.
The mural of Breonna Taylor was just unveiled in Lannon Park. That's in the Portland neighborhood. It's ahead of what would have been Taylor's 28th birthday. The mural is painted on a former basketball court at the park. The Russ Smith Foundation is among the forces behind this mural. It's beautiful. You see it there. People gathered around. Now, aside from the family, community members, protesters, and public officials were all there today for that unveiling. This idea started after the Taylor family went to the March on Washington last year. They traveled to Annapolis to see the Breonna Taylor mural there and spoke to one of the artists. He says he told Breonna's mother if he had the opportunity, he would love to do a mural in her hometown.
If I get stopped one more time, we're going to have a problem. Now look at the mural. Look at the symbols. Look at the signs. The coexist sign. The same thing that the Pope is pushing, they are pushing. It's witchcraft behind this. It's evil spirits behind this. You got the pentagram, the yin and the yang, the upside down cross with equality, the love symbol, the coexist, the peace sign, all this stuff. The Muslim sign, the Christian sign, Christianity. Look at this. I don't understand how people sit here and look at this and just gloss all over it. Like, oh, this is so beautiful. I'll check back at this mural in like 3 years and see how it looked. Will it look the same? Will it look the same? Or would the drug dealers and stuff would take over that too and destroy that also? This is hypocrisy. She gets a whole mural. And people don't understand the backdrop of the Breonna Taylor story. What she was into. What type of lifestyle that was in place. But they looking at her like she's a hero. How she's a hero? When you put a statue up, when you do a statue or you do a mural, it's something. It has to deal with something that you have done to change this is the narrative of things. It's something that you done. She did. It's not like she went into battle, into the army, and was fighting against all the terrorists and stuff like that, and she got killed in the process. No, she got shot because of the lifestyle she was living. Hello, hypocrisy. I'm gonna talk more about this. We're gonna go to the next video because I want to dig more deep into this. Next video. No, wait. Before we keep on moving, hold up. Before we keep on moving, even George Floyd got a statue in the mirror. What do he deserve that for? Can somebody? Where is my homie got shot in the head? Where his mirror at? I got homies dead. Where their mirrors at? Children been getting killed all year long. Where their mirrors at? Where their statues at? Political moves. Juneteenth is a joke. We have enough money to put up murals for people that live a certain lifestyle that put them in that predicament. I believe whatever you did in life, it comes back to you 100-fold. The scripture says you reap what you sowed. So whatever you sowed, you will reap. It's impossible to sit here and say that these people need murals and statues. And then when you go check their background, nothing about Jesus Christ. Again, nothing. Listen, Jesus Christ, listen, God's people will show themselves as God's people. You will know God's people. You don't even have to search for it. I have to search and see what their religion is. I can't sit there and say that these people are religious people. Not religious, but God's people. These people don't have an ounce of Jesus Christ in them. Their background says something different. Now, whether the media lied about these stories or not, who knows, to be honest, because it's all propaganda to gain political power gain. This is a power move. Has nothing to do with Breonna Taylor. It has nothing to do with George Floyd. It's a power move. Y'all so quick and up to say, well, that's good that, they're starting to recognize us. Why? Because they put up a few murals and they gave y'all a couple checks? That's what keeps y'all happy? Really? Next story.
Developing tonight, Chicago police are looking for a group of people who attacked and killed a man in Humboldt Park shortly after the Puerto Rican Day Parade on Saturday.
His friends say he grew up in the neighborhood but moved because it turned too violent. WGN's Patrick Elwood now live with the latest tonight. Pat.
Terrible, cruel irony there, Ray. Good evening to you, Lourdes, as well. CPD treating this, no doubt about it, with the highest priority, saying they do have some good intel, some good tips, and the mayor weighing in on this tonight as well, saying those who are responsible will be hunted down. The signs read, "Rest in peace," and "You are a beautiful soul, taken too soon." Part of a bigger display of remembrance for Giovanni Arzuaga, killed Saturday night. Sean knew him well.
This was my homie. He was more than just a friend. I looked at him as like a big brother.
City cameras capturing the crime that started with a minor traffic accident. The car, Arzuaga and his companion and mother of their 2 children, is rushed by a group who then proceed to pull her out from behind the wheel. Things quickly go from bad to worse. And while detectives were back in the neighborhood tonight, their boss, Chief of Detectives, Brendan Dinahan, described the chain of events earlier today.
They are seen hitting and beating the woman who's the driver of the vehicle and then eventually dragging her out. What the video doesn't show is there was a shot discharged at some point, and you can't see it in the video, and it appears when the female gets struck. And then the male comes out, and he's almost on top of her. And then you see that second suspect clearly just holding a gun, shooting him in the head, almost execution style.
The ambush takes place at the intersection of Division and Spalding, in only hours after the Puerto Rican Day Parade, held in the same area. The mayor today calling what happened horrific.
It wasn't just one person, but there were others who were standing by, who dragged that poor woman out of the car. The individual, the man who was killed, literally used his body as a shield, and he paid for that with his life. It's a horrific statement. It's a horrific statement about those men who are involved in that. I don't believe that they are typical by any stretch of young black men in the city, but it's horrific nonetheless.
Late this afternoon, a high school friend came to pay tribute to Giovanni. Sean says he had moved out of this neighborhood to escape the violence and just came back to visit Saturday night.
And he was just a real nice dude. Like, we even lived next to each other. You wouldn't expect this to happen to him, especially living out in Schaumburg area.
Is that where he's from?
Yeah, no, he's from over here. His parents live over here, but we all moved back that way to, have a better life.
Moved back there, came back there to visit, moved to Schaumburg for a better life, Sean says. The 25-year-old companion who was with him last listed in critical condition. We're live at the police station at Belmont and Western. Patrick Elwood, WGN News, Lourdes and Ray, back to you in the studio.
Okay, I will take it. Thank you, Patrick. An infant hurt in a...
I mean, like I said in my previous episode, there's a spirit of anger. Why we don't call this racism? Why don't we call this racism? You know why? Because it's not a black or Puerto Rican person. It's black. It's Puerto Rican on Puerto Rican. It's called hatred. However you slice it, it's called hatred. This is ridiculous. This is ridiculous. I mean, they shooting broad daylight, but y'all want, goes back to the Portland police, but y'all want to defund the police. And this is why Portland police are sick of it. These statues that they got of these victims, these police officers are sick of it because there's so much hypocrisy behind that. And they, like, some police officers are good police officers. The ones that's leaving are the good police officers. The ones that's in there are the effed up police officers. Sorry I had to use that, but it is what it is. These are the This is why. Shooting in broad daylight. A man trying to protect his girlfriend gets shot multiple times. Trying to protect his girlfriend. He gets out the hood just to come back to get killed. He gets out the hood just to come back and get killed. That's ridiculous. Is he going to get a statue? Is he going to get the best funeral that he ever had? What about his family? Is he going to get millions and millions of dollars? Since BLM is Black Lives Matter, and y'all about social justice, is y'all going to come to his aid? No, because he's not black. Hypocrisy at its finest. It's not going to happen. He's not going to get a statue. He's not going to get a mural. And even if he did, who cares? So now y'all just putting statues and murals of people that just get knocked off. What type of a sign is that sending? Oh, we just gonna lay down and get killed and put murals. That's what you. So you gotta be a martyr for the police or a martyr of the streets to get a mural put up. It's ridiculous. Next story.
The consequences of defunding the police are leading to anarchy in America. Cops are under attack while crime surges all across the country. After Portland was battered with a year of riots, an entire squad is now resigning. The police department's 50-person crowd control unit is stepping down after one officer was indicted for using excessive force during the unrest last year. And look at this insane crime surge in Portland. Shootings are up 126%, and homicides have increased 530%. That's a lot. Other major cities like New York and Chicago are seeing a dramatic increase in violence thanks to liberal policies. And criminals are more brazen than ever. The NYPD just put out a video of a man getting gunned down in broad daylight after running into two young children on the sidewalk. Thankfully, the kids were unharmed and the victim is expected to survive. Democrats are turning on their own, like this politician in the Windy City.
The problem is that
you know, the Democratic Party on so many levels seems to be enamored with the mentality of being enablers to criminality. And I am proof that you don't have to cozy up to criminals to get reelected. You don't have to play identity politics. Sometimes voters just want the truth.
All right, let's just get this out of the way. Greg, where can people get the T-shirt if they want it?
You can get it at the Fox store.
Fox shop?
Yeah, the Fox shop. I don't think they have them in yet, but I just got the first one, so I thought I would wear it.
Okay.
Yes, and it's got the exclamation point, right?
We're talking about crime that is a fashion crime.
Thank you.
And but Jessica probably won't do anything about it.
I'm enjoying it, actually.
But tell me what you think about this guy from the Windy City, that's Chicago, for those of you guys who don't know that. He's saying that Democrats think they need to coddle up to criminals to win elections.
No, I think there are two things going on here. Number one, Democrats don't like to be seen taking the side of the opposition, even if the opposition is right. And I would say sometimes Republicans are like that as well. But in this case, there's such overwhelming evidence that people are dying because of your ego and because you don't want to align yourself with somebody you think is a moral or evil Republican. I just want to can we come up with one city in which there's a Republican mayor and there's trouble? Because I spent all night working at the library, you know, the Fox Library. I couldn't find one example of a Republican mayor leading a city that's in trouble. The other point is the biggest threat, according to President Biden, is the white supremacist movement. Yet we still don't have the stats for that. We don't have the names. We don't have the organized crime gangs that are causing crime sprees in the name of white supremacy. And yet we know the names of the clowns in Oregon. It's called Antifa. And they tell us where they are, Portland. And yet that's called an idea when it's actually it's a violent mob that is destroying a city. So basically what we're doing is we're giving bad actors what they want by denying they exist while chasing this phantom of white supremacy under every bed. And this is a replica, like I said yesterday, of every bloody revolution. You start with, when the population gives in to an immovable minority, meaning a small number of people. Do we know how many people are in Antifa? We don't, do we?
Just an idea, Greg.
It's just an idea, but I bet you could fit them in an auditorium.
You probably could, because they go from city to city, and I don't know if they've been infiltrated by the FBI.
They're like a traveling
to look into.
Traveling carnival.
And now this 50-person unit in Portland has resigned en masse. Do you think something like that is what's needed for politicians to snap out of their daze?
I think it goes to show how there's this widespread blanket demoralization with law enforcement in Portland. They feel completely unprotected. They feel attacked by the very vocal minority in the city. And the DA there, Mike Schmidt, he is awful. I talked to my brother. I've talked about my brother a lot. He was a cop in Gresham, which is just outside Portland. He was a parole and probation officer for years in Multnomah County. And he is a shooting instructor at the Oregon State Police Academy. So he talks to cops all the time. And he said that proactive policing will go on the decline this year. They're going to be, cops are going to be like firefighters. They will only respond when something bad happens instead of going out, talking to people, engaging, stopping stuff before it starts. Because for them, it's not worth it to get indicted. And it just goes to show this sort of revolt, they're standing up to a mayor, a nutless mayor, and a DA who does not have their back. They will not indict aggressive criminal felons who are making the city very unfree.
Did you say nutless?
I did. He's the
Is
nutless
he allergic?
wonder.
He's allergic.
It's an allergy.
I think
it's a food allergy.
It's the cashew.
That's right.
Very problematic.
And now children, as we showed you before, Dagan, are getting caught in the crossfire. I mean, thank God they're okay, but a stray bullet, goodbye, your life's over, and the parents have to pick up the pieces.
And pro-crime, anti-cop, and law-abiding residents and victims just have to fend for themselves. That is the land of left-wing lunacy. And it starts with the governor, and you can look here in New York. This is Cuomo down to the mayor, de Blasio, the city council, the district attorneys who have demonized, not only demonized police, which has the same effect as defunding the police because it makes them step back and then people retire, but also this has been going on for years, that laws and changes to the books that have let people free onto the street. A couple of things. I've talked to cops all the time in the street, and I ask them, how am I supposed to defend myself? Strict gun laws here. What am I supposed to do? I'm like, because if I defend myself, I'm going to be the one who winds up in jail. They're going to throw me away, and the victim will be on MSNBC and CNN. And that one friend of mine said, I'd rather be judged by 12 than carried by 6. I'd rather face a jury than wind up in a coffin, in essence. I think that one of the tests will be the Democratic primary for mayor here in New York City, because there's one guy in the lead, Adams, former cop. If he wins this primary, he will be the next mayor, because the other two are a disaster. And I think that if he wins this primary, like there's Catherine Garcia, who wants police officers fined for not wearing masks last year. And then Maya Wiley ran an ad demonizing the NYPD in a campaign. And then she literally vowed to slash the NYPD's budget because trauma from dealing with cops is a bigger problem than crime here. If Adams wins, it will be a signal to the rest of the Democrats, the lunatics across the country, that this anti-cop, pro-crime stance won't work anymore.
Jessica, I opened up the New York Post today, best paper in the country, only paper I read, besides the Wall Street Journal, also a great paper. And they had one of those little pie charts, which I love. It's probably the only chart I can understand.
And you love pie.
I love pie and the chart. And over 30% of Democrat primary voters say crime is the #1 issue they're going to vote on in this primary. And this is something that we have talked about for a whole year. Democrats and the media have denied that crime is even on the rise. It's an issue, yet their own voters, it's their top priority by a mile.
100% by a mile. And Dagan's absolutely correct about Eric Adams' rise to the top of the heap. He was running kind of in 3rd or 4th place. Andrew Yang was on top, actually. And Eric Adams started talking about his policing background and how we have to strike a balance between supporting those who wear the uniform and ensuring that we have a fair and equitable system and get good criminal justice reform and make sure that, people don't end up in jail for the rest of their lives for smoking a joint. Now, I think he is going to win, and it's our first time with ranked choice voting. But what Eric Adams is talking about is exactly what that alderman from Chicago is talking about. And it relates to Greg's point, which I think is very well taken, that it's incredibly hard for partisans, especially in elected office, when the fringes are so loud in terms of the supporters, to say, you know what, my colleague across the aisle has a point about this. And that does cut both ways. Unfortunately, on this issue, people end up dead because of it. And I'm wondering where the national discussion is about reforms that we can have in these major cities. Because do you remember the group of mayors, the Mayors Alliance that started under Mike Bloomberg, right? Where mayors from every major city came together to say, what is going to work for all of us? And Republican mayors came and Democratic mayors came and police chiefs. And we need to hear more about that because a lot of these problems are the same systemic issues in these cities. And I think that would be a great solutions-oriented way forward. Biden could call on that for that to be happening more publicly.
Well, I can tell you where I came from. You can't punch an old lady in the face and break her nose and not go to jail and get a desk appearance ticket. And that's exactly what happens over and over again.
Felony assault, absolutely right.
Over and over again in New York City. And it basically, you have to kill somebody to get thrown in jail around here. And that is a bail reform that was shepherded by the Democrats.
Okay, but can I just add something to that very quickly? If you want real criminal justice reform, you got to stop talking to Republicans and Democrats. You have to talk to libertarians because they have been the most critical and the most reasonable about the issue for so long, and they're not having these swinging emotional reactions to things. And they actually have a really solid list of actions that you could implement now across the country and make things better. When 50 good cops resign from an entire riot unit, that's not criminal justice reform. Getting rid of bad cops, that's criminal justice reform, but that's not happening in places like Portland.
And no one's spending their life behind bars for smoking pot.
Once Public Enemy said 911 is jokey joke town. It is. And for many reasons, because I do believe police officers put themselves in this predicament that police officers want to leave, especially in Portland. But it's not happening just in Portland. It's happening everywhere. Police officers are going to start resigning because they're going to start to see that they can't win. They can't win. You can't win against a democracy that's against against you. The democracy is against everybody. Whatever doesn't feed the democracy is against. If you're against the democracy, you're going to suffer. So certain police officers are going to suffer. Some police officers can't take this no more. It's too much. Police officers getting knocked off. Why? Because it's a purge. It's a purge going on. This is a purge that's going on, y'all. And if you're not careful, you're going to be part of that purge. One way or another. Now, the guy that was running from the other guy that was shooting at him, you know what people were saying? You know what people were saying about this? Their main concern was because he was running and there were some children in the way, and he just happened to run into him. Just happened to run into him, trying to get away from the shooter. And they accused him from hiding behind the kids. I don't look at that way. Because that shouldn't have happened in the first place. Why is it that two men in broad daylight, one man got a gun? Why does a man has a gun in broad daylight shooting at another man in broad daylight in the public? Where's the police officers at? All this going on and no cops in a lit area. And I ain't talking about as far as light. I'm talking about lit, like people. Where's the police officers at? People walking up and down the street, cars going up and down the street, no police officers. In the broad daylight, you have a person getting off the bus. I think he was coming off the bus and he was getting shot at. This man was shooting at the guy so much so that when he ran into the children and he fell, they say he tried to get away from he was trying to hide behind the kids. But nevertheless, even if he was trying to hide behind the kids, and that would have been that is a coward move if that was, I just think he was going off of his flesh and he was trying to get away. The kids just happened to be there and he was trying to get away. And the person that was shooting had no remorse if the kids would have got shot or not. He didn't care. His aim was the target. So they could have been innocent bystanders. But thank God none of the children was hit and the bullets didn't even reach. It is what it is. Next story.
Back to South Florida now, and the partial collapse of that condo building that has left one person dead, two others in the hospital, and new this hour, our first look at the collapse itself from surveillance video captured nearby. We have to warn you, this is extremely disturbing, especially given how many lights were on in some of those condos inside the building when it collapsed. We're only going to show it once here, and we're going to do that right now. It is horrifying to see as you see the middle part of the building collapse, followed by one side of it, and then that plume of dust and debris and smoke covering part of that area in Surfside. Rescuers right now are trying to move in equipment. They're trying to get that scene cleared. You can see some pictures of what it's looked like just in the last little bit this morning.
So unfortunately, once again, another tragedy hits Florida. A building collapsed And some people were injured, some people were killed. And again, we're living in times where things are just happening out of nowhere. Time is ticking, lives are being lost. People are getting taken out of here fast. There's something happening every week now, majorly. We always have something majorly to look at every week, and this is one of them. Last week, what it was just all types of, I can't remember. But it's something terrible happening every day now. Time is ticking. We're in the last days, people. And we're not taking it seriously because if we were, we have no time for a lot of stuff, man. We are supposed to be getting our life ready to meet the Lord. But we are indulging in things. And we are in the fallen state. Things are looking really, really, really bad. I would be surprised if we last another 10 years. I'm just being honest. What's this year? 2030? I can't even imagine what would that look like. I'm just looking at it right now. Trials and tribulations haven't even really started yet. And just by this pandemic and what we've been going through with this, it shows our character. It does. On who we are. I'm going to show you what our character is. We don't care. As long as we have our stuff and our things and we can do whatever we want, we don't care what's going on. As long as it's not touching our family members, we don't care what's going on. We need to be constantly grabbing and reaching for the Lord. Each and every hour, each and every day. We shouldn't even have time to do nothing else. Yes, we should have no time to do nothing else. Nothing else. This is a continuation. You have to continually do the Lord work. Yes, rest, stuff like that. But do it everything you do, you must do it in what? Spirit and in what? Truth. Not by your own feelings or your own traditions. The world is in grave danger. And if we don't get to the bottom of this ASAP, this world will come down crashing so fast. So fast. We don't have time, people, to play around. Look at this. Look at just this segment right here with all the news. It's ridiculous. This is not even scratching the surface. I have another teaching that I'm working on. A soothsaying and divination that's coming out soon. I'm going to be releasing Once Saved, Always Saved today. And y'all have that ready for you. I'm doing a lot of other things behind the scenes. But I thank the Lord for keeping me and keeping my family and keeping me having a sound mind and not falling for nonsense. I thank the Lord that he got me where I'm at. I thank the Lord I don't need anything from this world. Don't need it. Don't want it. I'm just happen to be here, and I use some of these things. But if I had it my way, I'll be with the Lord right now. But the only reason why I'm still here because I have a job to do, and I want this job to be complete. I don't want to leave this world without doing the works of my Lord. And until you get that understanding, you still will have a yoke around your neck. Juneteenth is a joke. This is Word of Truth. Signing off.